Hi there, everybody. My name is Kate, and welcome to my channel, Trinergy Awakens Naturally. So it's a very, 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 very tense time on the planet right now. This is a timeless message, of course, because when it's tense in our own heart and mind, it's tense. However, right now, chronologically in October of 2025, it's pretty pressed. People are pretty stressed. There's a lot going on. We have the Three-Eye Atlas coming in. We have solar plasma stuff going on that is pretty intense. A lot of weird things that are happening. However, let me get to the nugget of what's coming through for me today. For me personally, it has been a very emotional day, very emotional time period for several days. Every time the sun burps and throws out, coronal mass ejection, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the rocking and the rolling in my energy, which says a lot to me that not only is it happening to me, it's happening with those that are connected to my energetic field as well. And so, generally speaking, when I feel that kind of tumultuous stuff, I go inward to find out how I can go outward and take that into something that's 111, serviceable for humanity and serviceable in something outside of me. And so that is why I'm coming through, is that if you're feeling all of the ups and downs and all of the, real rocking and rolling feelings, you're not alone. You're absolutely not alone. If you're feeling a lot of extremes in the emotion, in terms of I'm crying hysterically, I'm screaming, in rage that scares me, I'm feeling just out of control, you're also not alone there. It is not just me. It is not just you. This is a time that humans are being called to bring something new through. And those of us that have not already kind of learned how to be grounded before now, it's a terrible time to be trying to learn how now. And so part of the biggest message that I have today that kept coming through for me, and for others I'm sure too, is to find compassion. Compassion for myself means that I can then reach out and have compassion for other people as well. And being very clear that what compassion means and what it doesn't mean, as well as when it's appropriate to act upon compassionate acts of service outside of me. I always really want to make sure that I'm meeting the need of me first, that if I'm feeling out of control, if I'm feeling sad, if I'm feeling filled with rage, if I'm feeling abandoned, I'm feeling guilty or shamed or something like that, that I always really want to come inside me first and find out how do I perform an act of kindness and compassion for me, so that I can then, if I feel compelled, when I'm done meeting my need, that I can go out and share, the excess of me. If I end up with no excess and I need to nurture my soul for 3 days more in my body, then that is okay. We absolutely can take that permission and really need to take that permission and give ourselves the space. Excuse me, my electronics have been popping off weird as well. Need to take that space where we really can restore our rightful place within us and within the new energies that are coming in. We are ascending rapidly. We're getting lots of downloads and we're getting lots of frequency upgrades. Those people that are aware of that, we're experiencing that and we're aware of what it is. And you have many more people on the planet who have no idea why they feel very strange, why suddenly illnesses are flaring up or symptoms they've never had before, mental health challenges, sadness, grief, anger, etc. You're seeing people that are highly dysregulated and they're not used to that. And so the Ascended Masters in the group, the people who already kind of know this stuff, the starseeds, the light workers, etc., we fundamentally can understand the process, and yet we have our own baggage and our own stuff that we're working through generally. I don't know anyone that is done with their journey, no matter how pristine and clean their life looks, no matter how they sound when they're presenting themselves on social media or to me. Very few of us unmask, for realsy, all the way out in 3D, because we barely even know who we are if we do. And we certainly don't send that out for others to take inventory of or to comment on. However, those of us that are on the journey and have done quite a bit of healing work, and we have a mission here to help humanity move into 5D, we can come at it with a little bit more compassion and understanding, perhaps. And that's what I'm saying, is that once we really have the compassion and understanding for ourselves, that we don't beat ourselves and say, oh, I should feel better about this, or I can't believe I'm having this kind of feeling about so-and-so. It's been 10 years. How could it possibly be? Or how come I don't have this already? Whatever it is, any moment that we can identify that we are beating ourselves up or we are being unkind to self or others, then it's definitely time to rewind. Even if it's only out here, that's a projection that we are finding fault out here. That's something in here that feels the need to mask up and, protect and keep this vulnerable part of me, from being seen or being felt too intensely, especially at a time when we are feeling all kinds of stuff very intensely. The veil is thin, and those of us that have empathic capabilities, we can hear, see, smell, taste, and touch a lot of things that we may not normally be in touch with, or if we are, it's supercharged, really, really super duper charged, and it's very upsetting to us. If we have old relationships that didn't end well and we have still some residual of that, we can feel people lashing back and being in those spaces of their karmic return where perhaps, we're past that burn ourselves, we're past the meat of that, but we're feeling and experiencing the intensity of that for other people. And I do not advise that you necessarily do something or not do something. I do not care to take on the grief or burden work of anyone else's karmic baggage. I don't unload things that don't belong to me unless I know very specifically that that is my mission, because that is some of the work that I, as a light worker and a starseed, somebody who does this kind of work, that is something that I do, and that I'm asked to do, is transmute sometimes for stuff that doesn't belong to me. However, as a general rule, when things come swinging through and it just overtakes me, I want to make sure I understand immediately by going into compassion mode of, does this belong to me? Because I want to know, if it doesn't belong to me, that needs to go over there so I can stand in a position of objectivity if it's even mine to work with. If it is, I'm not going to be able to really know unless I'm not in the middle of that cluster to begin with. And so separate out immediately of, where am I feeling this in my body? Where is it that I'm experiencing this? What is it that I'm experiencing? Who has a name for this? What is this? And just start asking and waiting for those answers. And separating out, is this me? Is this my energy? Is this an old memory? Is this something for me personally as my own ego identity and human being in some format or some avatar expression somewhere, some incarnation somewhere? If it's me, I absolutely want to close out anybody else. And that's the other side of it, is that once I know it's me, then I'm going to need to close everybody else out of that expression with me, because I don't want that karmic bond, that karmic tie that I'm working to say goodbye. I really want to make sure that I'm bubbling myself up in my own mind, that I'm going to deal with this, and divine is what's here to help me. There is no need to bring all of the players into this necessarily. We can do a controlled event here, a controlled landing on this, crash landing that doesn't really need to crash. Let's get a controlled landing on this. And the way that I do that is, let me assess this very carefully and separate out all the players. And when I need to bring those in, if I do, that'll be the controlled landing that I do. And once I can establish that, yes, this in fact is me or it's them, once I understand it's me, compassion, friend, is the answer regardless of who is with me or who is in me or who is around me or whatever it is that I'm dealing with. Compassion is the first answer. However, it may not be the first action that I take. My most compassionate act that I can give for me is to reach inside of me and ask whatever part of me is being, my dog is howling. Yep, he's howling. He doesn't generally do that, but he's done that a couple of times now in the middle of videos. He sees somebody, I guess, outside that he wants to go downstairs and play with. But whenever I have something come up, hello there, baby, then if compassion is the first answer, it may not be the first action that I take to be compassionate outside of me. And I need to ask myself, what's the most compassionate thing that I can do? There may not be an action step for me to do. It may be just to sit inside with me and ask, what can I do to bring comfort to you? Maybe to allow myself to rage for a few minutes, to cry for a few minutes, to, pound my pillows for a few minutes, to meet that need. The most compassionate thing may be internally for me to meet this need exponentially, to relieve me of my suffering, to get me out of my space of being out of control and out of balance because I haven't been heard up until now. Nobody cares. Nobody likes me, etc., etc., etc. Remember, this is after I've determined that this is me versus somebody else. Oftentimes that when we're tangled up with some quantum garbage or some karmic stuff, we don't even know. We're taking on the feels of someone else and we say, hey, I don't even know what I'm feeling here. I just feel rage. I feel this. I feel that. If that's not our baseline, if we feel pretty mellow most of the time, it's very good to get that inventory done of, is this mine, so that I can be quite compassionate from a neutral place. However, I won't get to a neutral place if I'm trying to figure out where I am in the midst of it, or if I'm not even asking, I'm feeling swept up and victimized by the emotions to begin with. And so when I can pull away and find what is that part in me that needs to have a voice here, that needs to say something, that needs to express itself, that needs to cry, that needs to grieve. When I stop running away from that and stop being afraid of it and stop telling it shouldn't exist for some reason, when I turn and face that and really give that space in me a chance to breathe and let it be, then the chances are great that that tantrum or that grief period, that sobbing, that moaning, that crying, that abandonment feeling, etc., will not be as long and protracted as I have been afraid it would be. 1111, thank you. We often run away from getting into the deep feels of things because we think we won't be able to handle it. We think we're going to go over the edge. And right now, I would highly advise that please do this at your own discretion, of course, and I am not a mental health professional, so please keep track of your own self. However, I would highly advise that as much as we can offer ourselves to allow for the real feels of what it is that we're feeling, and be trusting of the universe, trusting of our team, and trusting of our own need to expunge the infection that has come to the top, lance the boil, in as controlled a way as possible, manage that as well as possible by really meet the need in me. How can I allow myself to grieve? How can I allow myself to express my anger without bringing someone else into this conversation, no matter what's going on for me? Because once we complicate things without really fully understanding us, them, and then we start bringing in human beings too, we've really created quite a cluster that doesn't go well sometimes, and then we end up feeling worse, feeling more shame, feeling more abandoned, feeling more rage, feeling neglected, all kinds of things. And so once we have determined, what is my need here and what's the safest way that I can meet that need, if we begin to have those conversations and ask those questions for real and allow ourselves to be heard within us without any input from what anybody else thinks, begin those dialogues so that we can be courageous enough to say, I trust me to know that if I cry, it won't last forever. If I have to be throwing up, if I'm nauseous and I don't feel good, it doesn't last forever. Everything has a terminal ending of some kind, and most of us are just so terrified because we never felt like we had any agency or the ability to ever really stop anything from hurting us to begin with. Those things that traumatized us and terrorized us and left us feeling abandoned and really gross about ourselves, they were terminal events every single time because we were children. We were, victims. We were in a situation of vulnerability where we had no idea how to make this get away from me, how to make this stop, and how to make this stop bothering me. And we run everywhere in our minds, in our habits, in our addictions, in our behaviors, in our patterns. We run in 1,000 different directions, any direction except towards us. Excuse me. And it's vitally important that now especially, and every day going forward, as far as I'm concerned, that we run towards us. And I don't mean towards us in a selfish way of screw everybody else, I hate you, etc. To really genuinely reach in here and say, nobody else would speak to you this way, perhaps. However, I'm willing to. And even though I might not always know what to do, I'm willing to ask you, the internal parts of me, whoever it is that's feeling scared, whoever it is that's feeling angry, whoever it is that's feeling abandoned, sad, feeling shame, feeling blame, feeling yourself out of control in some way that feels like you don't have any way to help yourself. I am here. Now, this is not an easy process, perhaps. I'm sure it isn't. It hasn't been easy for me, and I'm sure that I'm not the only person on the planet who's ever had trouble gaining agency over places within me that had zero and had it taken from them very early on, and lived in terror states where my neurological system never had a chance to relax or know what true peace feels like. However, the moment that we begin asking those questions and saying, how may I bring soothing and comfort, and stop answering the call with more drama, our nervous system oftentimes, because we've come into that place of that being our baseline, we will often turn back into what we already know and what we expect our nervous system expects us to do, which will override any frontal lobe engagement, which will override any kind of sense that we've made to ourselves in a therapy session or in a journaling session or meditation or something. When we feel pressed and we have a lot of external factors that are helping us to feel really, really jumbled and jittery and weird already, if we return, if we're not able to find our way to get that agency, we return to what our nervous system already knows, not what our logic would say is the right thing to do, not what our heart might even want us to do. It's going to return us to that state that we have patterned into us with other people and because of other people, whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm not looking to blame anyone. I'm saying we are in a state of whatever it is that we're in, and in order to reach our new equilibrium in the midst of lots of dysregulation, the mind wants to go back to, the nervous system wants to go back to, the entire package feels it easiest to go back to the last known place that was safe. And functioning dysfunction is not terribly safe. It really isn't. However, if that's the last known place that we stood, it was wobbly as hell and it was crazy. However, we at least knew that. We knew the devil of that. It can be very disconcerting. It can be very, terrorizing to us to look at something that might be what we conceive of or perceive as worse than what we're going through now. However, none of that is addressed or handled or made any better by running away from it and refusing to allow those parts of us. They will run us into, whatever state of being they need to in order to get our attention. That's why you see so many people dysregulated and making very poor choices and very violent choices and very off the wall, sideways choices that don't make sense. When we're in our, state of seeming calm or even perhaps calm, 1717 is 8-8, then we can see and observe the behavior of others and say, oh my God, what are they doing? That makes no sense to me. Why would they ever? And yet we might not always be able to see whenever we're in that heightened state of anxiety and trauma response and reactions that are just off the charts. We don't always see that. We can often identify outside of us very easily. However, we do not necessarily very easily take that as, does this apply to me? Is this something I'm observing, or is this something that is mirroring me? Anyway, when we're able to get to those places, we can better serve those places and help the nervous system to regulate, to get to a new baseline and get out of that old trauma response, that old patterning that the neurological system understands that, oh, that's what I understand, that's what I know. We don't have to go there again and again and again. However, if we continue to deny right now, especially because it's so very significant, so very strong, and so very potent, that we can actually be digging in and making it worse the more that we are running away from that which is really hurting us, that which is really calling us to please sit down and journal, please sit and, listen to some music, please rage dance, please do something, switch up the game, switch up the steps, pick a new dance step, do something different than what you have done. That will instantly throw a monkey wrench into the old system. I'm not saying that it's a cure instantly. It is not. For most people, I've not seen that work, that you just instantly see something change and you're healed. What I have seen, though, is that people that are changed, their perception can be changed instantly, and they can get a window of opportunity to at least feel, I had control, if you will, management, if you will, of the throttle of my own helicopter. I had the wheel of my own car. I was in charge for half a second of my own avatar. And once we know we have the building blocks to begin again and again and again, that I could do that one time, then I can do it again. And it actually will feed in a spiraling up kind of experience where we're feeding and nurturing upwards rather than a death spiral. We're in a growth spiral, a Fibonacci spiral up, that once I did that one time, I was able to manage with my breath. I was able to take a walk around the house, or I was able to shift my position, I was able to change some music, I was able to do something that had nothing to do with anybody else except me, answering the call of me. And perhaps I felt like I fumbled, perhaps I felt like an idiot, perhaps I felt like a lot of things. However, I cared enough to change the dance step, and inside of me knows that, and knows that my honest, raw, beautiful, and pure intention to meet my need without consulting anyone else and without feeling weird about it, too weird anyway, that is what carries that part through, to know that I can trust you. I've got your attention because I've been screeching and screaming, or I've been over here terrorized and quiet, excuse me, as a mouse waiting to pounce any second or be pounced upon. That part of me, that part of my energy has been heard, it's been seen. And even though we don't always show up knowing, I don't know anybody that knows how to do anything the very first time they try it, including speaking to ourselves and rebuilding the paradigm of us, or taking down the old paradigm of old things that no longer serve us. I don't know anybody that starts that project and doesn't run into, the awkwardness and the weirdness of that when they start. None of us is flawless. It's getting out of that comparative study stuff to begin with, that we're not on anybody else's journey, and nobody else is on our journey, and no one else's journey, no matter how clean and pristine it looks, it is always going to be dressed up, because that's what humans do. We dress up what we're going through, or we absolutely let it all hang out and hope that somebody will find us pathetic enough to save us. I mean, those are the two ways that we do this. Our defense mechanisms generally are, I'm going to dress this up and make it look better, or I'm going to boast up and act like I'm not bothered, or I let it just dress down and completely self-sabotage because I'm fulfilling what I believe to be true already. So the deal really isn't in making sure that we're perfect. It's in perfectly showing up, as in, I'm going to answer the call as perfectly as I know how, with as much intention and purity. That is the perfection, is the intention to meet me on every level with more compassion and more kindness than anyone perhaps ever has in my whole entire life. That I'm showing up for me. I've always deserved that, whether I got it or not. 2222, and I'm going to at least try this for me and for you. Spirit says, try that, try that, try that, try that, be that, see that, and conceive that, and believe that, and you can achieve that truly. Because once we get in touch with that part of us that hears us, that is that God seed, that is that child magical, that is that wonderful, delightful part of us that we might have to really excavate and dig around. It's not going to happen probably the first time we try. However, once we get a hold of that and we know we have met that, it will never turn us down. It will never deny us. It's a matter of, please stop running away from me so that I can help you understand me. It's a strange conversation to have, perhaps, and a lot of people would, call us crazy and all kinds of things. And that's why the comparative study, there's no time for it. There's no time anymore on earth for anyone else to be looking at another person and, making judgment or making assessment. The only thing I need to do is discern who I keep around me and who I do not, and what I do. That's it. And to act with great compassion for myself where I've misunderstood things. And then the more that I really, really, really can bring that into, better and better balance more quickly, and ease up that trauma response, get my baseline to more peaceful, truly peaceful, the more I can then see and have compassion for other people around me, and even other people that I no longer have in my world, that I can have that forgiveness and that compassion for them. Whether I choose to have them in my world or not is irrelevant, because if I do not find a place to reach peace with them, they're in my world regardless, because I'm still probably thinking about them. I'm still comparing myself to a life that I used to live with them, or I'm feeling guilty or ashamed about that. We don't need one other person to help us achieve the state of being of peace and resetting our neurological system. That is an inside job. There is no one else that can do that 24/24 for us. And that is the sovereignty, the beauty, and the power of knowing that, is that there isn't anybody that can do that. And once we really get a hold of the idea that nobody else can do that, then it is up to me. And it can seem overwhelming. However, if you only know that that littlest, tiniest, seemingly smallest part of you, that God seed, doesn't need you to do anything except be willing to show up in the need and in the surrender of the moment of, I really could use your help. I really need to understand me. I want to understand you, and I want to hear you. That grows exponentially. And if we're willing to put our toe in there, and give it a try, even though we're terrified, and we really have some courage to at least inquire, ask inside here, you would be amazed at how much fear can be lost and how much fear we can still stand down and keep moving regardless. It's not a matter of eradicating all grief, eradicating all anger, eradicating all fear. It's not about eradicating anything at all except the darkness, the lack of light and love within us. That's all. And that's not a war or a battle necessarily. And if it has been, we don't have to stay there eternally. We can begin to turn the light on within us and say, yeah, turning the light on means I allow myself to be a light for myself before I ever think about being a light for anybody else, that I truly show up for me, trusting, knowing, and believing that I can do this. I am doing this because I'm still here. And because I am still here, no matter what it looks like to anybody else, I'm still giving it my best on some level, or I wouldn't be here. Even if it looks sloppy, even if I have massive judgment about it, there's somewhere inside of me that has not given up my divinity, period. So I hope that's been helpful to you in some way. And I hope that you are enjoying your day no matter what part of the day you're in. And remember to get within your skin, because you're divine. It's really, really quite beautiful. It's lovely. And it's absolutely fine. It's a matter of remembering that all the members of you that have been fractaled out in tragic places and tragic spaces and trauma, etc., just of being a human being. We've all been hurt at some point or another. When we member back, we remember our members back to us, the fractals of us, the parts of us, however you understand that. When we remember that, we instantly connect with the infinite place in us that will help us. The more we stay focused on that, instead of focused on running away from that. So anyway, as I said, get within your skin, and you're divine. It's absolutely beautiful, totally lovely, filled with compassion for you, as am I, and you are totally fine. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you again next time. Goodbye, my beautiful friends. Mwah.